Hi, and welcome to the webinar. This webinar is for the parents who did not get a chance to make it to the parent-teacher interviews and parent presentations. So this will be access for you. So thank you very much for coming out and observing this tonight. I know we are all busy, so I'd like to give out my contact information out front. You can feel free to contact me any of these three ways, and I'll look forward to having a conversation about you and your wonderful students. So getting to the grade. So how are we going to get to the grade? I'm going to look at 4 different topics here about how we get to the student grade. Number 1 is how does your child get assessed? 2 is fair assessment. 3 is what is a rubric? And 4 is using the previous 3, how do we get to the final grade? So if we look at assessment, teachers use 3 forms of assessment. One is assessment for learning. Next is assessment as learning and assessment of learning. So let's go through these slowly because they're all a little different, but they all affect what the student will be doing. So assessment for learning is what the teacher uses to alter the lessons going forward to ensure that the students are understanding and able to master the material. So if we look at conversations, teachers have conversations, strategic questions given to class, observations, student conversations, student notes. So what I'll do with this information is after I give a lesson, I'll observe the students, how they're doing on it. I'll look at their notes, look at things along those lines. And if they're getting it, we can speed up the lesson maybe, or I can not teach aspects that they already understand. Or if we're not getting it, we need to slow down. We need to alter our lesson a little bit to ensure that they master material before they go forward. So here's some pictures through the class of what could occur. The picture on the left is a student-teacher conversation occurring on the boards. The student on the top right is just observing the class and how they're doing. And the beautiful thing about vertical non-permanent surfaces is you can see the work from across the classroom. I can see good work, I can see students who are struggling, I can see what's happening with the students and how they're thinking through. Then the last picture to the bottom right is our online notebook on Microsoft OneNote. And students are to be taking notes each day of their work for studying later. And I can go in and take a look at their notebooks at any time, unlike a regular notebook where a student can take it home and I'd have to physically take the notebook from them. I can always go online, access the student's name, pop into their notebook, see how well they're doing, taking notes, see how their questions went that day. So that is assessment for learning. So if we go assessment as learning, this is almost the same in a way, but from the student perspective. So the student is going to reflect on their learning and figure out where they are and what they're going to need to go forward. So things along this lines of student quizzes, learning goals, and success criteria, and peer evaluations. And this assessment as learning comes about through teacher-student conversations about goals, and it gives a student an opportunity to advocate for their personal needs to succeed. So the student will tell me, and I will ask them, what do you need in order to succeed within this class? So as you see in our left-hand section there is success criteria for completing a question. So a student will be able to understand if they are able to obtain these success criteria consistently, they'll think, okay, now I'm on track, I know where I am. And the picture on the right is an example of peer evaluation, a very general term where students are helping students go from good enough to better to best. And this is really good with vertical non-permanent surface teaching because students rely on other students to help them with questions. If the group is not getting something, they can go to another group, they can have a conversation about the question, and one group can help the other group work through the question. And finally, the one we're most familiar with as parents is assessment as learning. So this is your traditional test, exam, projects. So this is a task or activity that allows students to use measures to record and report on student learning. This can be inquiry-based learning, projects, tests, exams, and things along those lines. we can also take this information to plan the next lesson going forward of where we are and if we're struggling with something along those lines. So examples of as learning would be, as you can see in the top left, your standard test. The other two ones show group projects where students are learning together, maybe inquiry-based learning, things along those lines. Next, I'd like to talk about fair assessment and take a little time to reflect upon the comic there. As you can see, the comic doesn't present fair assessment for all these teachers' learners. Of course, the monkey's going to excel, the fish is going to stay in the same spot, the wolf may do okay, but who knows, right? So within my classroom, assessment is continually being assessed and reassessed to ensure fairness by evaluating the validity, reliability, bias, and content error. Tests and large-scale assessments are also designed through best practices, looking at what's best within the industry of teaching and education, of providing for students and providing a format for tests, a format for assignments that will best get the results out of the students as possible. And also this is differentiated learning, where we give an opportunity for students to show their knowledge in different ways. So in different projects, a student is able to demonstrate what they can do in different ways. It's not just do one thing. A student may be able to show it as a graph. A student can do a demonstration. A student can do make a video of their work. And whatever they feel they're best at, they can demonstrate. So it'd be fair for all to show their best foot forward. Rubrics. I put up Rub What because we've been using these for a while, but not everyone kind of knows how they work or what they work with. Okay, so generally it's just a matrix or grid used to interpret and grade students. Okay, the 4 parts of the rubric will be consisting of knowledge, communication, thinking, and application. And within each one of these, they'll have a criterion descriptor. If you can see the chart off to the right, the criteria is the far left column, and descriptors are to the right. And I have a blown up one here for math that looks at application, the part of the application. Okay, so you'll see this would be level 4 through 1, 4 being to the far right, 1 being to the far left. So this is what we're looking for within application of mathematics. I'll give you time to take a peek at that. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. So we've done all this. How do we get to the grade? So the evidence of learning comes through triangulation. This is observations of the process, conversations, and collection of product. And we can take this observations, we can take this triangulation and take a peek at it through each lens, and it actually reflects back onto assessment quite well, because we can see that assessment as learning, assessment of learning, assessment for learning is all included within this. So collection of product would be the as. Conversations would kind of be for, collection of product would be the of, the conversation would be the as, and the observations would be the for. So you can see how we've covered all of these previously, and this is where the teacher would use their professional judgment and look at the products and look at the conversations and look at observations to come to a final grade. And how's that final grade calculated within this 2P math course? It can be observed here where 30% knowledge, 20% thinking, 30% application, and 20% communication. The term work is worth 70, and the final assessment, which comes in the form of an exam, will come to 30% of your final grade. If you have any questions, here's my contact information again. And if you want any more in-depth look at these content parts, I've included a link to the Growing Success document where you can access all the things I've talked about today. Thank you very much, and have a great